Hello family, enjoy this relaxing moment with charm stories. Remember to subscribe and share your thoughts in the comment section. Also generously hit the like button cause it means the world to us. Please sit back, relax and enjoy as we dive into the story. Leonard's mansion was the epitome of wealth and luxury. Perched on a hill overlooking the city, the sprawling estate boasted floor-to-ceiling glass windows, meticulously landscaped gardens, and a marble driveway large enough to host a fleet of cars. Inside, the house was equally impressive. Crystal chandeliers hung in almost every room, and the air carried a subtle, expensive scent of vanilla and cedarwood. The walls were adorned with priceless art pieces, and every corner spoke of elegance and excess. Leonard sat in his private study, staring at the glowing screen of his laptop. His study was his sanctuary, a place where decisions worth millions were made, but tonight, it felt unusually suffocating. His mind was elsewhere, drifting back to the same thought that had haunted him for years: no male heir. On the surface, Leonard appeared to have everything: a thriving business empire, a stunning wife, and 3 beautiful daughters. But behind his perfect public image, dissatisfaction gnawed at him. His daughters were wonderful, yes, but they couldn't carry on the family name or legacy. In Leonard's mind, his dream of building an everlasting dynasty was slipping away. Vanessa, on the other hand, was content with their family. She adored their daughters and poured her energy into raising them. As a devoted mother, she didn't share Leonard's obsession with having a male child. That evening, Vanessa walked into Leonard's study. Her silk robe flowed behind her as she carried a steaming cup of his favorite herbal tea. "You're working late again," Vanessa said softly, placing the cup on his desk. She looked at him with concern. "You've been staring at that screen for hours. What's wrong?" Leonard leaned back in his chair, running a hand through his neatly combed hair. "Nothing," he replied curtly, his tone betraying his frustration. Vanessa frowned. "I know you, Leonard. It's not nothing. You've been so distant lately. Is something bothering you at work?" "It's not work," Leonard said, his voice rising slightly before he caught himself. He sighed and looked at her. "It's us." Vanessa's brows furrowed. "Us? What do you mean?" "We have a beautiful family, Leonard. Our girls are thriving. What more could you want?" "A son, Vanessa," he snapped, standing up and pacing the room. "I've built an empire, but who will carry it forward? Who will inherit everything I've worked so hard for? Our daughters will marry, and their husbands will reap the benefits. What happens to my name, my legacy?" Vanessa felt a pang in her chest. She had heard this before, but it still hurt every time. "Our daughters are more than capable of continuing your legacy, Leonard. They're smart, talented, and determined. Why can't that be enough?" "It's not the same," Leonard said, his tone sharp. "You don't understand." Vanessa sighed, her eyes filling with unshed tears. "Maybe I don't. But I do know this obsession is tearing us apart." Before Leonard could respond, the sound of tires crunching on the driveway echoed through the night. Vanessa glanced toward the window, her frown deepening. Who could that be at this hour? Minutes later, the grand front door swung open, revealing Veronica standing in the doorway. She looked strikingly similar to Vanessa, but with subtle differences that set her apart. Her long hair was slightly lighter, her makeup bolder, and her stance more confident, almost rebellious. She wore a tight leather jacket over a black dress, and her expression was a mix of exhaustion and defiance. "Surprise," Veronica said with a faint smile, her voice carrying a playful edge. "Veronica!" Vanessa exclaimed, rushing forward to hug her sister. "What are you doing here?" "Long story," Veronica replied, her voice tinged with bitterness. "Let's just say I needed a fresh start, and I thought, why not crash with my favorite sister?" She shot Leonard a glance and added, "And her charming husband, of course." Leonard, who had been watching silently, stepped forward and extended a hand. "Veronica, it's been years." "Too long," Veronica replied, shaking his hand briefly before pulling her luggage inside. "I hope I'm not interrupting anything." Vanessa laughed nervously. "Of course not. You're always welcome here. Come in, let me get you settled." Later that evening, the three of them sat in the grand living room. The soft glow of the fireplace illuminated the room as they sipped wine and caught up. Veronica shared bits and pieces of her failed relationship but avoided going into too much detail. "He was a jerk," Veronica said, swirling her wine glass. "I thought he was the one, but, well, let's just say I overestimated him." Vanessa reached over to squeeze her sister's hand. "You'll find someone better. You're strong, Veronica. You always bounce back." Leonard watched the exchange, his eyes lingering on Veronica. She was different from Vanessa, bolder, freer, and unrestrained. She spoke with a confidence Vanessa lacked, and her laughter was infectious. For the first time in a long while, Leonard felt a flicker of excitement. "Well," Veronica said, breaking the silence. "Thanks for letting me stay. I'll try not to overstay my welcome." "Nonsense," Vanessa said. "Stay as long as you need." "Absolutely," Leonard added, surprising both women. "This is your home too, Veronica." Veronica raised an eyebrow but smiled. "I'll keep that in mind." Over the next few days, Veronica settled into the mansion, quickly becoming a part of the household. She charmed the staff with her wit and had the children laughing with her stories. Leonard found himself drawn to her energy. She was everything Vanessa wasn't, unpredictable, daring, and unapologetically herself. One afternoon, Leonard found Veronica lounging by the pool. She wore a vibrant red swimsuit and oversized sunglasses, her hair cascading over her shoulders. He hesitated for a moment before walking over. "Enjoying yourself?" he asked, handing her a glass of lemonade. Veronica smirked. "More than I expected, to be honest. You and Vanessa have built quite the paradise here." "It's not just about the house," Leonard said, sitting on the lounge chair beside her. "It's about what you make of it." Veronica tilted her head, studying him. "And what are you making of it, Leonard? You don't strike me as the type to just sit back and relax." Leonard chuckled, though there was a sharpness to it. "You're right. I'm always thinking ahead, planning for the future. That's who I am." "The future, huh?" Veronica said, taking a sip of her drink. "What's your plan for that? Another business venture? Or something more personal?" Leonard hesitated, then leaned back in his chair. "Let's just say I've been rethinking certain priorities." Their eyes met briefly, and something unspoken passed between them. Veronica smirked again, but this time it felt more calculated. Meanwhile, Vanessa remained blissfully unaware of the growing tension between her husband and her sister. She was grateful to have Veronica around, believing it brought a sense of completeness to their family. Vanessa often praised Veronica for her charisma and even joked about how the children seemed to prefer her stories over their bedtime books. "I don't know how you do it," Vanessa said one evening as they prepared dinner together. "The girls adore you." Veronica laughed. "Maybe because I let them stay up late and eat dessert before dinner." Vanessa shook her head, laughing. "Well, whatever it is, I'm glad you're here." In that moment, Vanessa looked genuinely happy, unaware of the storm brewing around her. Veronica smiled back, but there was a flicker of guilt in her eyes. That night, Leonard sat alone in his study, replaying the day's events in his mind. He couldn't ignore the pull he felt toward Veronica, and it both excited and unnerved him. She was dangerous, unpredictable in a way that made him feel alive. But she was also Vanessa's twin, and the line between desire and betrayal was razor-thin. For Veronica, the allure of Leonard's attention was intoxicating. She had always lived in Vanessa's shadow, and now, for the first time, she felt like the one being noticed. She knew it was wrong, but a part of her craved the power it gave her. Unbeknownst to both of them, their choices were setting the stage for a betrayal that would shatter the fragile balance of their world. Leonard sat in his vast, dimly lit study late one evening. The room smelled of leather and aged whiskey, two of his constant companions during sleepless nights. His hands were clasped tightly as he stared at the family portrait that hung above the fireplace. In the photo, Vanessa smiled radiantly while their 3 daughters stood beside her, holding hands. They were a picture of happiness, yet to Leonard, the image felt incomplete. His mind gnawed at the thought, 3 daughters, but no son. No heir to carry on his name or legacy. He slammed his fist onto the desk, his frustration bubbling to the surface. Vanessa, oblivious to Leonard's inner storm, entered the room with a soft knock. She carried a tray with a steaming cup of herbal tea. "Leonard, you've been in here all day. You missed dinner again," she said, placing the cup on the table. Her voice was gentle, but there was a hint of concern. Leonard didn't respond immediately. He looked at her, his eyes cold and distant. "I'm busy, Vanessa." Vanessa sighed and sat on the edge of the desk. "You're not busy. You're punishing yourself. You've been like this for months. You don't talk to me anymore. What is it?" Leonard hesitated, his jaw tightening. "I don't want to argue with you." "Then don't argue. Talk to me," Vanessa pleaded, reaching for his hand. "Our girls need you, Leonard. I need you. You're shutting yourself away from us." Leonard pulled his hand back abruptly. "It's not about needing me, Vanessa. It's about what I need." Vanessa frowned. "And what is that?" He looked at her for a long moment, then muttered bitterly, "A son." The words struck her like a blow. She blinked, trying to hide the hurt in her eyes. "Leonard, our daughters. Our daughters can't inherit my legacy." Leonard snapped, standing up. "You don't understand. I've worked my entire life to build this empire. Who will carry it forward? Who will carry my name?" Vanessa stood too, her voice trembling. "They're your children. Why can't they be enough?" Leonard turned his back to her, staring out the large window into the night. "Because it's not enough." Vanessa swallowed hard, fighting back tears. "I'm sorry, Leonard. I can't change the fact that we have daughters. I can't give you what you want." "You've made that clear," Leonard said quietly, his tone final. As weeks passed, Leonard's bitterness toward Vanessa deepened, though he kept it hidden behind a mask of civility. Meanwhile, Veronica's presence in the house grew stronger. She filled spaces that Vanessa didn't even realize were empty. She laughed louder, stayed out later, and lived life with a reckless energy that Leonard found intoxicating. The way Veronica moved around the house, carefree, bold, was unlike her twin sister's quiet, composed demeanor. Leonard noticed everything about her. The way her laughter echoed, how she could command a room with just a glance, and the subtle way she touched his arm when she spoke to him. Vanessa welcomed Veronica's help with the children, trusting her completely. She even joked one afternoon, "You're like their favorite aunt now. Maybe you'll teach them how to be as confident as you." "Confidence is everything," Veronica replied with a sly smile, flipping her hair. Leonard watched the interaction from the other side of the room. His eyes lingered on Veronica for just a little too long. One quiet night, Leonard found himself restless. He poured himself a glass of whiskey and wandered through the darkened halls of his mansion. As he passed the living room, he noticed a faint glow. The flickering light came from the television. Curious, Leonard stepped in. Veronica sat curled up on the couch in her pajamas, a blanket wrapped around her legs. Her face lit up as she laughed softly at the comedy on the screen. Leonard hesitated before speaking. "Couldn't sleep." Veronica looked up, startled. "Oh, Leonard, you scared me." She smiled. "Yeah, I couldn't. Too much on my mind." Leonard walked over, setting his whiskey glass down on the coffee table. "Mind if I join you?" "Not at all," she said, patting the seat next to her. Leonard sat down, trying to ignore the way her perfume filled the air. The silence stretched for a moment before Veronica broke it. "This house is too quiet at night," she said, staring at the screen. It's a little eerie, don't you think? Leonard smirked. You get used to it after a while. Veronica sighed and turned to him. You don't seem like you're doing much better either. Always in your study, brooding. What's going on, Leonard? Leonard's expression darkened, and he took a sip of his whiskey. It's nothing you'd understand. Try me, Veronica said, her tone softer now. I'm a good listener. Leonard looked at her, really looked at her. The resemblance to Vanessa was undeniable, but Veronica had something else, an edge, a fire that Vanessa lacked. He leaned back on the couch, his voice low and controlled. I've spent my life building something great, Veronica. A name, a legacy. But now I'm realizing I might lose it all because, he paused, choosing his words carefully. Because Vanessa can't give me a son. Veronica raised her eyebrows, her expression unreadable. That's not her fault, Leonard. I know it's not, Leonard said quickly, though bitterness crept into his voice. But it doesn't change the fact that I'm running out of time. Veronica was silent for a moment, staring at him. So what are you going to do about it? Leonard turned to her, his gaze intense. I don't know. But I need an answer, and I need it soon. The tension in the room shifted. Leonard's eyes lingered on Veronica's face. Her full lips, the curve of her jaw, the confidence in her gaze. Veronica didn't look away. For the first time, she felt seen, truly seen, in a way she hadn't before. You're not like Vanessa, Leonard said suddenly, his voice barely above a whisper. Veronica's heart skipped a beat. What do you mean? You're different. You're strong. Confident. You're everything Vanessa isn't. Veronica swallowed, the air between them growing thick. A part of her knew this was dangerous, but another part, a darker part, liked the attention. She'd spent her whole life being compared to Vanessa, always falling short in everyone's eyes. But here, now, Leonard saw her. Leonard shifted closer, his voice dropping even lower. You don't deserve to be in anyone's shadow, Veronica. You're better than that. Veronica's pulse quickened as Leonard reached out, brushing a strand of hair from her face. Leonard, she murmured, her voice uncertain. He leaned in, his breath warm against her skin. I can give you the life you deserve, Veronica. You don't have to feel like second best anymore. Veronica froze, her mind racing. She knew this was wrong, but the temptation was overpowering. The years of feeling invisible, overshadowed, and unimportant came flooding back. Leonard's words were like a balm to her insecurities. Leonard leaned closer, his lips almost brushing hers. Give me what Vanessa couldn't, and I'll give you everything. Veronica closed her eyes, her resistance crumbling. You promise? I promise, Leonard whispered. And in that moment, Veronica gave in. From that night forward, everything changed. Leonard and Veronica's affair began in secret, hidden behind closed doors and whispered conversations. Leonard was careful, making sure Vanessa remained oblivious. He showered Veronica with gifts, designer clothes, jewelry, and whispered promises of a future where she would be at his side, not in Vanessa's shadow. Veronica felt powerful for the first time in her life. She wasn't just Vanessa's twin anymore. Leonard treated her like she was special, and she believed him when he said she would change his life. Leonard, on the other hand, was consumed by his obsession. His hope for a male heir grew with every passing day, and Veronica was his answer. Vanessa continued to trust her sister blindly, completely unaware of the betrayal unfolding under her own roof. She often thanked Veronica for being there to help her and the children, believing her twin's presence was a blessing. One evening, as they sat together in the garden, Vanessa smiled warmly at Veronica. You know, I don't know how I'd manage without you. You're like a second mother to my girls. Veronica forced a smile, guilt gnawing at her, but she quickly pushed it away. After all, she told herself, Vanessa had everything. Leonard, the house, the children. Why shouldn't she have a piece of it too? You deserve to be happy, Vanessa, Veronica said softly, though the words felt hollow. I am happy, Vanessa replied, completely unaware of the storm gathering around her. As Leonard lay in bed that night beside his sleeping wife, his thoughts drifted to Veronica. He couldn't shake the excitement, the thrill of what they were doing. To him, it was no longer just about the son. Veronica represented something more: control, power, and escape from the life he resented. Meanwhile, in her room down the hall, Veronica stared at the ceiling, her emotions a mix of satisfaction and guilt. She thought of Vanessa, her sister, who loved her so much, and wondered how long their secret could remain hidden. The night was quiet, but the mansion seemed to hold its breath. A betrayal had begun, and though no one knew it yet, the consequences would be devastating. It was a quiet afternoon. The golden sunlight streamed through the large windows of the mansion, illuminating Veronica's room. She sat on the edge of her bed, staring at the small white stick in her trembling hands. The two bold lines stared back at her, mocking her with their clarity. She was pregnant. Her heart pounded loudly in her chest as a wave of emotions hit her all at once. Shock, fear, and a flicker of something else: triumph. This was what Leonard wanted, wasn't it? A son. An heir. But now that it had happened, the reality of the situation overwhelmed her. What have I done? She whispered to herself, tears gathering in her eyes. There was a knock at the door. Veronica quickly wiped her tears and shoved the pregnancy test into her bag. Come in, she said, her voice shaky. It was Vanessa. She peeked in with her usual bright smile. Hey, you're up here alone. Are you okay? Yeah, I'm fine, Veronica replied quickly, forcing a smile. Vanessa frowned slightly, walking in. You don't look fine. You've been acting a little off lately. Is something wrong? Veronica's heart skipped a beat. Her sister's concern was genuine, and for a brief moment, guilt gnawed at her. I think I'm just tired, Vanessa. You know, adjusting to everything. Don't worry about me. Vanessa nodded and smiled warmly. If you ever need to talk, I'm here. I mean it. I know, Veronica said softly, watching Vanessa leave the room. As soon as the door closed, Veronica let out a shaky breath. She had to talk to Leonard. That evening, Veronica found Leonard in his study, as usual. He was seated behind his mahogany desk, a glass of whiskey in hand and a serious expression on his face as he looked over some business documents. Leonard, we need to talk, Veronica said, walking in without knocking. Leonard glanced up, his brow furrowing. Can't it wait, Veronica? I'm busy. No, it can't wait, she snapped, shutting the door behind her. This is important. Leonard sighed, setting his glass down. Fine. What is it? Veronica stood in front of the desk, her arms crossed tightly over her chest. I'm pregnant. The words hung in the air like a bomb. Leonard froze, his expression unreadable. What did you say? I said I'm pregnant, Veronica repeated, her voice trembling with anger and anxiety. This is what you wanted, isn't it? You wanted a son. Well, here you go. Leonard stared at her, his mind racing. A mix of emotions flashed across his face. Shock, fear, and then a glimmer of excitement. Are you sure? Yes, I'm sure, Veronica replied bitterly. Do you think I'd joke about something like this? Leonard stood up slowly, rubbing a hand over his face. This changes everything. You think? Veronica said, her voice rising. What are we going to do now, Leonard? Vanessa will find out sooner or later. I won't be able to hide this pregnancy forever. Leonard walked around the desk, placing his hands on her shoulders. Calm down, Veronica. Don't panic. Don't panic. Veronica pushed his hands off, glaring at him. How can you say that? You promised me, Leonard. You said you'd figure things out if this happened. Well, now it's happened, so what's your plan? Leonard turned away, pacing the room as he tried to collect his thoughts. I just need time to think. You need time. Veronica's voice dripped with sarcasm. I don't have time, Leonard. The longer we wait, the harder this is going to get. Leonard stopped pacing and faced her. Listen to me. You can't tell Vanessa. Not yet. Veronica stared at him in disbelief. What do you mean, not yet? You expect me to keep this a secret? Yes, Leonard said firmly, stepping closer to her. Think about it, Veronica. If we tell her now, everything will fall apart. Vanessa will leave me, and what happens then? You'll have nothing. I don't care about that, Veronica said angrily. I'm tired of sneaking around, Leonard. She's my sister. She trusts me, and I'm lying to her every single day. Leonard grabbed her by the arms, his voice low and commanding. You think telling her the truth will make things better? It will destroy her. Do you want to do that to your own sister? Do you want to ruin her life? Veronica hesitated, his words sinking in. Leonard softened his tone, his voice smooth and manipulative. Just give me time, Veronica. I'll figure this out. Once the baby is born, everything will fall into place. I promise you. And what about Vanessa? She asked, her voice cracking. I'll handle Vanessa, Leonard said, brushing a hand against her cheek. You have to trust me. Veronica looked into his eyes, torn between guilt and her desire to believe him. You'd better keep your promise, Leonard. I won't be your dirty little secret forever. Leonard smiled faintly, though there was no warmth in it. I always keep my promises. Over the next few weeks, Leonard's behavior became more erratic. He would disappear for hours, take calls in private, and avoid Vanessa whenever she asked questions. The once loving husband she knew now seemed distant and distracted. One afternoon, Vanessa found him in the living room, staring at his phone with a strange expression. She walked up behind him quietly. Leonard. Leonard jumped, quickly locking his phone and shoving it into his pocket. Vanessa. You scared me. Vanessa frowned. What's going on with you lately? Nothing, Leonard said quickly, plastering on a fake smile. Work's just been stressful, that's all. You've been saying that for weeks, Vanessa replied, crossing her arms. You're always distracted, and you're barely spending time with me or the girls. Leonard sighed, rubbing the back of his neck. I told you, it's work. There's a lot on my plate right now. Vanessa studied him carefully, sensing something wasn't right. Is there something you're not telling me? Leonard forced a laugh. Vanessa, you're overthinking again. Everything's fine. She nodded slowly, though doubt lingered in her mind. If you say so. Later that evening, Vanessa sat on the bed while Leonard showered. His phone buzzed on the nightstand. She glanced at it instinctively but quickly looked away, shaking her head. No, she thought to herself. Leonard wouldn't lie to me. He's just stressed. I need to stop imagining things. She trusted him, completely and blindly. Meanwhile, Veronica grew increasingly anxious. She felt trapped, hiding in the shadows of her own lie. Her morning sickness made it harder to pretend everything was normal, and she avoided Vanessa whenever she could. One morning, Vanessa knocked on Veronica's bedroom door. Veronica? Are you okay? You've been in there all morning. I'm fine, Veronica called back weakly. Just a headache. I think I'll rest a little longer. Vanessa hesitated. Can I get you anything? Tea? Breakfast? No, I'm good. Thanks, Vanessa. As soon as Vanessa walked away, Veronica sat on the edge of the bed, burying her face in her hands. She couldn't look her sister in the eye anymore. That evening, Leonard visited Veronica in her room. He closed the door behind him, his expression calm and confident. How are you feeling? He asked softly, sitting beside her on the bed. Terrible, Veronica muttered. I hate lying to her, Leonard. I don't know how much longer I can do this. You don't have to worry, Leonard said soothingly. Everything is under control. Nothing is under control, Veronica snapped, glaring at him. You keep saying that, but what's your plan, Leonard? When are you going to tell her? Leonard cupped her face gently, his tone reassuring. When the time is right. Trust me, Veronica. I'm doing this for us, for the baby. Once he's here, everything will make sense. You always say that, Veronica said, tears welling in her eyes. But what if you're lying? What if you just want to keep me quiet? Leonard smiled faintly. Have I ever let you down before? Veronica looked into his eyes, searching for the truth. Against her better judgment, she nodded. Fine. But I'm warning you, Leonard, if you don't keep your word, I'll tell her myself. Leonard's smile faltered for a second before he recovered. You won't have to. I promise you. As he left the room, Veronica leaned back against the pillows, closing her eyes. She wanted to believe him. She had to believe him. But deep down, a part of her wondered if Leonard's promises were just empty words. That night, Vanessa noticed Leonard's mood had improved. He smiled at her more, even joking with the girls during dinner. She watched him, feeling a flicker of relief. Maybe he's just been stressed all along, she thought. Maybe I've been overthinking everything. As Leonard kissed her goodnight and turned off the lights, Vanessa whispered softly, I love you, Leonard. I love you too, he replied smoothly, though his voice held no warmth. Vanessa closed her eyes and drifted to sleep, trusting the man who was slowly tearing her world apart. The days turned into weeks, and Veronica's pregnancy began to show. At first, she wore loose clothes, carefully hiding her growing belly, but as time passed, her confidence grew. She began wearing fitted dresses and casually touching her stomach as if it were an afterthought. Leonard noticed, and his attention fed her ego. They often exchanged subtle glances when no one was watching. Veronica had stopped caring about discretion, and Leonard, blinded by his obsession with the unborn child, let it happen. One evening, Leonard was in the living room, reviewing some documents while sipping his whiskey. Veronica entered, wearing a silk dress that hugged her figure perfectly. She smiled slyly as she approached him. You've been hiding away in your study too much lately, Veronica teased, sitting on the armrest of his chair. Leonard looked up at her, his eyes flickering to her stomach. You should be careful, Veronica, he said softly. Vanessa's in the house. She's busy, Veronica replied, brushing her hand over her bump. Besides, it's not like she suspects anything. You've kept her completely in the dark. Leonard smirked, leaning back. Because I know what I'm doing. Veronica arched an eyebrow. Do you? Because at some point, Leonard, she's going to notice. I'm not exactly invisible. Leonard's face grew serious. I told you to trust me. I'll handle it. Just don't get reckless. Before Veronica could respond, they heard footsteps approaching. Vanessa entered the room carrying a tray with Leonard's dinner. Oh, Vanessa said, surprised to see Veronica there. I didn't know you were here too. I was just keeping Leonard company, Veronica said casually, standing up. I'll let you two have dinner. As Veronica walked past Vanessa, her hand brushed over her belly, so subtly that it might have been missed, but Vanessa caught it. For a moment, Vanessa stared after her sister, her brow furrowing in confusion. Leonard noticed the look and quickly broke the silence. What's wrong? Vanessa shook her head. Nothing. Never mind. She placed the tray on the table and smiled faintly. Here's your dinner. Don't stay up too late. Thanks, Leonard said, forcing a smile. But as Vanessa left the room, a seed of doubt had been planted in her mind. Something didn't feel right. The next afternoon, Vanessa was walking down the hallway when she heard muffled voices coming from behind the door of Leonard's study. She paused, recognizing the voices immediately. It was Leonard and Veronica. At first, She didn't want to eavesdrop, but something about their hushed tones felt off. "You need to stop showing off," Leonard said sharply. "Vanessa's not stupid. She'll notice." "Relax, Leonard," Veronica replied, her tone almost playful. "If she hasn't figured it out by now, she never will." Vanessa's heart stopped. "What are they talking about?" Leonard's voice dropped lower. "Don't push me, Veronica. I'm doing this for the baby. You just need to stay quiet and let me take care of everything." Vanessa's breath caught in her throat. "The baby." Suddenly, the door creaked open, and Leonard stepped out. He froze when he saw Vanessa standing there, her face pale. "Vanessa," he said, recovering quickly. "What are you doing here?" I was looking for you," Vanessa said, forcing herself to sound normal. "I wanted to talk to you about dinner tonight." Leonard glanced back toward the room, then gave her a tight smile. "Sure. Let's talk in a bit. I need to finish something first." Vanessa nodded slowly and walked away, her heart pounding in her chest. The words she had overheard played over and over in her mind. The baby. Something was terribly wrong. That night, Vanessa lay in bed unable to sleep. Leonard had been distant for months, but this was different. The conversation she overheard gnawed at her, and no matter how hard she tried, she couldn't shake the feeling that Leonard was hiding something. She stared at the ceiling, tears gathering in her eyes. "What's happening to us?" she whispered to herself. By morning, Vanessa had made up her mind. If Leonard wouldn't tell her the truth, she would find it herself. The next day, while Leonard was at work, Vanessa met with a private investigator at a quiet cafe in town. The investigator, a sharp-looking man named Mr. Adams, sat across from her as she explained her suspicions. "I don't have much proof," Vanessa admitted, "but I know something isn't right. My sister's been acting strange, and my husband. He's not the same." Mr. Adams nodded, scribbling notes. "You said you overheard them mention a baby?" "Yes," Vanessa said, her voice trembling. "But it doesn't make sense. My sister's not married, and Leonard wouldn't." She paused, unable to finish the thought. Mr. Adams looked at her kindly. "I'll look into it, Mrs. Leonard. Give me a few days." "Thank you," Vanessa whispered, clutching her hands tightly. 3 days later, Mr. Adams called Vanessa. "I need to see you. It's urgent." Vanessa met him at the same cafe, her hands shaking. Mr. Adams slid a small folder across the table. "I'm sorry, Mrs. Leonard. This isn't easy to see." Vanessa hesitated before opening the folder. Inside were photographs, Leonard and Veronica in various moments that confirmed her worst fears. There they were, holding hands in secret, talking closely when no one was watching, and the most damning photo of all, Leonard's hand on Veronica's visibly pregnant belly. Vanessa stared at the photos, her vision blurring with tears. "Your sister is pregnant," Mr. Adams said gently. "And based on my findings, your husband is the father." Vanessa's hands trembled as she clutched the folder. "How could he?" she whispered, her voice breaking. "I'm truly sorry," Mr. Adams said quietly. Vanessa closed the folder, her face pale and unreadable. "Thank you, Mr. Adams." As she drove home, her mind swirled with emotions, anger, betrayal, and heartbreak. The man she trusted, the man she loved, had destroyed her. And her own sister. How could Veronica do this to her? By the time she pulled into the driveway, her sadness had turned to resolve. She would confront Leonard, and she would not let him twist the truth. That evening, Leonard returned home late. He walked into the living room, loosening his tie, only to find Vanessa sitting on the couch, the folder on the coffee table in front of her. Leonard froze. "Vanessa? You're still up." "Sit down, Leonard," Vanessa said quietly, her voice calm but sharp. Leonard hesitated, sensing something was wrong. "What's going on?" "Sit," she repeated, her eyes burning into him. Leonard sighed and sat down, his eyes darting to the folder. "What's this?" Vanessa pushed the folder toward him. "Open it." Leonard frowned but complied. The moment he saw the photographs, his face fell. Vanessa watched him closely. "Is it true?" Leonard closed the folder and looked at her, his expression hardening. "Where did you get these?" "Don't change the subject," Vanessa snapped, her voice shaking with fury. "Is it true, Leonard? Is my sister pregnant with your child?" Leonard leaned back in the chair, his jaw tight. "It doesn't matter how it happened. Answer me," Vanessa shouted, tears streaming down her face. "Yes," Leonard said coldly. "It's true." Vanessa covered her mouth, her body trembling. "How could you do this to me? To our family?" Leonard stood up, his voice turning defensive. "I did what I had to do, Vanessa. I need a son, an heir, and you couldn't give me that." Vanessa looked at him, stunned. "Are you blaming me for this?" "I'm not blaming you," Leonard said, his tone sharp. "I'm stating the truth. I needed someone to carry on my name, my legacy, and you failed me. Veronica gave me what you couldn't." Vanessa stared at him in disbelief. "You destroyed our marriage for a son? You betrayed me with my own sister." Leonard's expression was unapologetic. "You don't understand, Vanessa. You never did." Vanessa stood up, her body shaking with anger. "You're a monster, Leonard. And I'll never forgive you for this." Leonard smirked cruelly. "Forgive me or not, it doesn't change anything. The baby is coming, and I'll do what's necessary to ensure he has everything." Vanessa shook her head, tears falling freely now. "You've lost me, Leonard. You've lost everything." She turned and walked away, leaving Leonard standing alone in the room, his face hard but his eyes betraying a flicker of regret. Vanessa sat alone in her bedroom, her heart shattered into pieces. The man she had trusted and loved for years had torn her world apart, and her sister, the person she had welcomed into her home, had betrayed her in the worst way imaginable. But as the tears fell, something inside her hardened. This wasn't the end. She wouldn't let Leonard's arrogance destroy her or her children. "This isn't over," Vanessa whispered to herself, her voice steady despite her pain. "You'll get what you deserve." Outside the room, Leonard poured himself a drink, unaware that his actions had set into motion a storm he would soon regret. The house was eerily quiet in the moments before the storm. Vanessa sat alone in the living room, her hands clasped tightly as if holding on to the last shred of control she had left. The truth was out. Her sister Veronica had betrayed her, and her husband, Leonard, had destroyed their family. The walls of the grand mansion that once felt warm and comforting now felt like a prison. Veronica descended the staircase slowly, dragging her suitcase behind her. Her face was pale, and she didn't dare meet Vanessa's eyes. She stopped at the bottom step, her voice soft but defensive. "Vanessa, can we talk about this?" Vanessa looked up, her eyes red and swollen from days of crying. Her voice was steady, but her pain bled through. "There's nothing left to talk about, Veronica. You need to leave." Veronica dropped her suitcase and took a step forward. "Please, just listen to me. I didn't plan for any of this to happen." Vanessa stood up, her posture rigid. "You didn't plan for it? You didn't plan to betray me, Veronica? To sleep with my husband? To carry his child?" Veronica flinched but forced herself to respond. "It's not like that." "Then explain it to me," Vanessa shouted, her voice cracking. "Make me understand how my own sister could do this to me." There was silence. Veronica opened her mouth to respond, but no words came. Vanessa took a deep breath, her expression hardening. "I opened my home to you. I trusted you. I loved you like no one else, Veronica, and this is how you repay me." I was vulnerable," Veronica whispered weakly, tears brimming in her eyes. "Leonard, he promised me things. He made me feel." "Don't you dare," Vanessa cut her off sharply, pointing a finger at her. Don't you dare blame this on him. Yes, Leonard is a monster, but you're my sister. You should have protected me. You should have protected my family. Veronica's tears fell freely now, but Vanessa didn't care. She turned her back, her voice low but firm. Get out of my house. Vanessa, please, Veronica cried. Where will I go? I don't care, Vanessa replied coldly, keeping her back to her sister. That's not my problem anymore. Veronica stood frozen for a moment, tears streaming down her face. But eventually, she grabbed her suitcase and walked toward the door. As the heavy wooden door swung open, she looked back one last time. I'm sorry, Vanessa, she whispered. Vanessa didn't respond. She stayed perfectly still until she heard the door close behind Veronica. Only then did she let herself collapse onto the couch, sobbing uncontrollably. Leonard came home later that evening, completely unaware of what had transpired. He found Vanessa in their bedroom, packing suitcases with swift, determined movements. Clothes flew into bags as she muttered to herself under her breath. Leonard frowned, setting down his briefcase. Vanessa? What are you doing? Vanessa didn't look at him. I'm leaving, Leonard. What? Leonard's voice was sharp. Leaving? What are you talking about? Vanessa finally turned to face him, her expression a mixture of anger and heartbreak. I'm taking the girls and leaving this house. I refuse to stay here another day with you. Leonard's face hardened. You're overreacting, Vanessa. Sit down, and let's talk about this. Overreacting. Vanessa laughed bitterly, her voice trembling with rage. You slept with my sister. You got her pregnant. And you have the audacity to tell me I'm overreacting. Leonard stepped forward, his tone softening as he tried to regain control. Vanessa, listen to me. I made a mistake. Yes, but we can fix this. We can move past it. No, Leonard, she said firmly, pointing at him. You can't fix this. I gave you everything. I trusted you with my heart, my children, my life, and you tore it apart. Leonard's mask of calm began to crack. What about the girls? You're going to tear them away from their home, their father? Do you really want to do that to them? Vanessa glared at him. Don't you dare talk about the girls as if you care about them. You didn't think about them when you betrayed me. You didn't think about them when you destroyed this family. Leonard took another step forward, his voice dropping low. Vanessa, be reasonable. You'll regret this. I'll take care of you and the girls, but you need to stay. Vanessa shook her head, her hands trembling as she zipped up the suitcase. I don't need your money, Leonard. I don't need anything from you anymore. Leonard's jaw tightened. You're being dramatic. Where will you go? You can't just walk out on me like this. Vanessa paused, looking him straight in the eye. Watch me. Leonard's face contorted with anger. Fine. Leave, then. But don't expect me to come crawling after you. Vanessa didn't respond. She grabbed the suitcases, called for the girls, and walked out of the room. Leonard stood there, fists clenched, as he listened to the sound of the front door closing behind them. Vanessa moved into a modest, two-bedroom house on the other side of town. It was small and far from the grandeur of the mansion, but it was peaceful. She spent the first few nights sleeping with her daughters in the same room, holding them close as they cried and asked why Daddy wasn't there anymore. It's okay, she whispered to them in the dark. We'll be okay. Mommy's here. During the day, Vanessa busied herself making the small house feel like home. She cooked meals from scratch, hung family photos on the walls, and made sure her daughters felt loved and safe. One afternoon, her oldest daughter, Emma, sat beside her at the small kitchen table. Mommy, will Daddy come here? Vanessa smiled softly, brushing Emma's hair from her face. No, sweetheart. Daddy's not coming here. But you have me, and I'm not going anywhere. Emma nodded, leaning into her mother's embrace. For the first time in weeks, Vanessa felt a flicker of peace. Back at the mansion, Leonard was beginning to feel the weight of his decisions. The scandal had begun to spread, whispers in his social circle, side glances from business partners, and an icy silence from the community that once admired him. The first blow came when one of his biggest investors pulled out of a major deal. Leonard sat in his office, staring at the email on his screen. "This can't be happening," he muttered to himself, running a hand through his hair. His assistant entered the room cautiously. "Mr. Leonard? There's another call from the bank. They're asking about the loan repayment on the construction project." Leonard snapped. "Tell them I'll call them back later." The assistant flinched and left quickly. Leonard leaned back in his chair, loosening his tie as panic began to rise. The numbers weren't adding up. He had thrown too much money into risky projects to impress his investors, and now, with his personal life in shambles, his focus was slipping. That night, Leonard sat alone in the massive dining room. The table was set for one. The silence was deafening as he pushed his food around his plate. He missed the sound of his daughter's laughter, Vanessa's gentle voice, and the warmth of a family that he had taken for granted. His phone buzzed on the table. It was a message from Veronica. "I need money. Things are getting harder for me. You promised to take care of me and the baby." Leonard groaned, rubbing his temples. Veronica had become a burden, another reminder of his mistakes. "I don't have time for this," he muttered, tossing the phone aside. Within weeks, Leonard's carefully crafted image began to crumble. Rumors of his affair and the pregnancy spread like wildfire, fueled by whispers among colleagues and business rivals. Some of his oldest partners began pulling out of contracts, unwilling to be associated with the scandal. During a board meeting, one of the directors finally spoke up. "Leonard, we can't keep ignoring this. Your personal issues are affecting the company's reputation. Investors are losing confidence." Leonard slammed his fist on the table. "This is my company. I built it from nothing, and I won't let you lecture me on how to run it." The board members exchanged uneasy glances, but no one dared challenge him further. Leonard stormed out of the meeting, but deep down, he knew they were right. One evening, Leonard returned to the mansion after another disastrous day at work. The house was dark and empty, filled with a silence that seemed to mock him. He walked through the hallways, stopping briefly to glance at the family photos still hanging on the walls. He paused in front of a photo of Vanessa and their daughters. Vanessa's smile was bright and full of life. Leonard reached out and touched the frame, his face unreadable. "Look what you've done," he muttered to himself. As he sat down in the empty living room, nursing a glass of whiskey, the weight of his loneliness finally hit him. He had destroyed everything, his marriage, his family, his business, all because of his own selfishness. Meanwhile, in her small but happy home, Vanessa was finding strength she didn't know she had. She watched her daughters play in the backyard, their laughter filling the air, and for the first time in a long time, she felt hope. Her phone buzzed. It was a message from Leonard. "Vanessa, we need to talk. Please come back. I can fix this." Vanessa stared at the screen for a moment before deleting the message. "No, Leonard," she whispered to herself. "You made your choice. And I'm choosing to move on." She looked out at her daughters and smiled, knowing that this was her fresh start. Leonard sat alone in his mansion, surrounded by silence and regret. The empire he had built was slipping through his fingers, and the family he had taken for granted was gone. Vanessa, on the other hand, stood tall in her new home. It was small and modest, but it was filled with love, laughter, and peace. For her, this was not the end, it was a new beginning. The day Veronica gave birth was supposed to be her victory. It had been months of silent suffering, Leonard's promises keeping her tethered to him, even as his attention began to waver. She had convinced herself that giving Leonard a son would secure her position, that it would make her indispensable. The birth had been difficult, but when the cries of the baby boy filled the sterile hospital room, Veronica's heart swelled with hope. She clutched the tiny boy in her arms, tears streaming down her face. "He's perfect," she whispered to herself. "He's going to change everything." Leonard arrived at the hospital hours later. When he entered the room, Veronica sat on the bed cradling the baby. The exhaustion was clear on her face, but so was pride. "There he is," Leonard said, his voice carrying a detached satisfaction. He didn't rush to her side or ask about how she felt. Instead, he moved straight to the baby, bending down to take a closer look. Veronica smiled faintly. "He's beautiful, isn't he?" Leonard nodded, his tone almost clinical. "He looks strong. That's what matters." Veronica's smile faltered. "Do you want to hold him?" Leonard hesitated for a moment before finally taking the baby in his arms. He stared down at his son, his expression unreadable. "Finally," he muttered under his breath. Veronica watched him carefully. "Leonard, we did it. This is what you wanted, isn't it? Our family." Leonard cut her off, handing the baby back to her. "He'll need the best care. I'll hire a full-time nanny. You'll make sure he's raised properly." Veronica blinked, confused. "Of course, but I want to be part of his life too." "Don't be emotional, Veronica," Leonard said coldly, turning toward the window. "This is about the future. You've done your part, and now I need to focus on ensuring he becomes everything I've planned for him." Veronica's stomach dropped. She had imagined this moment so differently. She had dreamed of Leonard holding her hand, of celebrating their new life together as a family. But now, it felt like she was nothing more than an afterthought. "Leonard," she began carefully, "we're still a family, right? You said you'd take care of us. That we'd be happy." Leonard turned to face her, his gaze sharp. "And I will take care of you, financially. But I don't have time for pointless sentimentality. My focus is on him now." His words hit her like a slap. Veronica's throat tightened. "So that's it? I'm just here to raise him? What about us?" Leonard's expression hardened. "What did you think this was, Veronica? A fairy tale? You knew what you were getting into." "I thought you loved me," Veronica whispered, tears welling in her eyes. Leonard chuckled bitterly. "Love? Don't be naive. I needed a son, and you provided one. That's all." Veronica stared at him, unable to process the cruelty of his words. "So that's all I am to you? A vessel?" Leonard shrugged. "Call it whatever you want. But don't expect more from me, Veronica. You served your purpose." Leonard kept his word, financially. Veronica and the baby were moved into a luxurious wing of the mansion, far away from his main quarters. At first, she tried to convince herself that things would improve. Maybe he's just overwhelmed, she thought. Maybe he'll come around. But he didn't. Leonard became colder and more distant. He stopped visiting her room entirely, only checking in on the baby occasionally, and even then, only when his nanny reported progress. One evening, Veronica found herself pacing the nursery, trying to calm the crying infant. She was exhausted. Leonard had insisted on hiring a nanny, but the woman treated Veronica like she was an outsider in her own home. When Leonard finally appeared, Veronica turned to him in desperation. "Leonard, I need help. He won't stop crying, and I..." Leonard glanced at her with irritation. "That's why I hired the nanny. This isn't your job." "He's my son, Leonard," she snapped. "I want to be a mother to him." Leonard's expression was icy. "Then stop complaining and do it. I won't tolerate this kind of weakness, Veronica. If you can't handle it, then I'll find someone who can." Veronica froze, her heart sinking further. You don't mean that." Leonard didn't respond. He turned and left the room, leaving her alone with a screaming baby. As the days turned into weeks, Veronica realized the life she had imagined was a lie. She was no longer free to come and go as she pleased. Leonard controlled every aspect of her life, her finances, her schedule, even who she was allowed to see. He insisted it was for the baby's security, but Veronica knew the truth. She was a prisoner in the very mansion she had once envied. Meanwhile, on the other side of town, Vanessa was building a life she could be proud of. The small house she had moved into was now filled with love and laughter. Her daughters, though they missed their father at first, thrived under her care. Vanessa poured her energy into starting a small catering business. It began modestly, baking for neighbors, hosting small events, and delivering meals to local offices. Word of her talent spread quickly. Within months, she had more clients than she could handle. One afternoon, Vanessa stood in her kitchen, rolling out dough while her middle daughter, Lily, sat at the table doing homework. "Mommy, can I help?" Lily asked, looking up from her books. Vanessa smiled warmly. "Of course, sweetheart. Come here." Lily climbed onto a stool, and Vanessa guided her small hands over the dough. As they worked together, Vanessa felt a deep sense of peace. "Mommy," Lily asked suddenly. "Yes. Are you happy now?" Vanessa paused, her heart softening at the innocent question. She looked at her daughter, smiled, and kissed her forehead. "Yes, baby. I'm happy. As long as I have you girls, I'm happy." A few months later, Vanessa's business had grown into something she never dreamed of. She now had a small team to help with catering events, and her reputation for creating delicious, homemade meals spread across the community. One evening, as Vanessa packed the last of the day's orders, her phone rang. It was an old friend from her social circle, a woman who had heard about Vanessa's growing business. "Vanessa, I heard about the wonderful work you're doing," the woman said. "I'm hosting a charity gala next month, and I'd love for you to cater it." Vanessa blinked in surprise. "A gala? Are you sure?" "Of course. Your food is incredible, and you deserve the exposure. You're doing something amazing, Vanessa." Vanessa's heart swelled with gratitude. "Thank you so much. I'd be honored." After the call, Vanessa sat down at her small dining table, looking around the cozy home she had built. The sound of her daughters giggling from the other room brought a smile to her face. For so long, she had been Leonard's wife, defined by his wealth, his status, and his expectations. Now, she was her own woman. Back at the mansion, Veronica's days became darker. She no longer recognized herself, the confident, carefree woman she had once been. Leonard rarely spoke to her, and when he did, it was only to criticize her or remind her of her duties. One night, as she sat alone in the nursery, holding her son in her arms, tears slipped down her face. "I thought this would make me happy," she whispered to the baby. "I thought this would make him love me." The baby cooed softly, unaware of the weight of her words. The door creaked open, and Leonard stepped in. "What are you doing in here?" he asked, his tone clipped. "I'm just spending time with him," Veronica said, looking up. "Leonard, please. Can't we talk?" Leonard's expression was cold. "About what?" "I've given you everything you need. What more could you possibly want?" "I want you to care about me," Veronica said, her voice trembling. "I want you to treat me like a person, not a tool." Leonard scoffed. "You're being dramatic again. I don't have time for this." "You don't have time for anything, Leonard," Veronica shouted, standing up. "You promised me a life. You promised me happiness, but all you've done is lock me away like some dirty secret." Leonard's face darkened, and he stepped closer. "Watch your tone, Veronica. You knew exactly what this was. Don't play the victim now." Veronica's voice broke. "You're a monster." Leonard smirked cruelly. "And yet, here you are. You made your choice, Veronica. Live with it." With that, he turned and left the room, slamming the door behind him. Veronica sank to the floor, clutching her baby and sobbing. For the first time, she realized the full weight of her mistakes. She had destroyed her relationship with her sister, believing Leonard's promises, and now she was alone, trapped and unloved. Months later, Vanessa stood in front of a crowded ballroom, overseeing the gala she had been asked to cater. The event was a resounding success. Guests marveled at the food, complimenting her with enthusiasm. A woman approached her toward the end of the evening. "Vanessa, your work is incredible. You must be so proud." Vanessa smiled, looking around at her team as they worked efficiently. "I am. Thank you." The woman leaned in conspiratorially. "I heard about what happened with Leonard. Everyone has. But you rose above it." Vanessa's smile didn't waver. "Life gives us choices. I chose to move forward." As the evening drew to a close, Vanessa's daughters ran up to her, their faces glowing with excitement. "Mommy, everyone loved your food," Emma said, hugging her tightly. Vanessa knelt down and hugged both her daughters, her heart full. "I couldn't have done it without you too." In the darkness of Leonard's mansion, Veronica sat alone by the window, staring out at the empty gardens. Leonard had taken everything from her: her freedom, her dreams, and her sense of self. Meanwhile, in her cozy home, Vanessa sat on the porch with her daughters, watching the sunset. Her business was thriving, her daughters were happy, and for the first time in a long time, she felt truly free. In the end, karma had struck with full force. Leonard had his son, but he had lost everything else: his wife, his reputation, and the peace of a loving family. Veronica, who thought she could win by betraying her sister, found herself alone and miserable. Vanessa, however, had risen from the ashes, stronger than ever. She was no longer defined by the past. She was free to build a future of her own. Leonard sat in his office, sipping his whiskey as he reviewed a pile of financial reports. His world had felt increasingly unstable. Investors were pulling out, his business deals were falling through, and whispers of his personal scandals were spreading through the city like wildfire. Despite everything, Leonard held on to one thing: his son. He had convinced himself that the boy was his future, the key to his legacy. But that assurance crumbled when a knock interrupted his thoughts. "Come in," he barked. Veronica stepped in, wearing a fitted black dress that highlighted her figure, though the stress was beginning to show on her face. She walked straight to his desk, her expression sharp. "We need to talk," she said curtly. Leonard leaned back in his chair, unimpressed. "What now, Veronica?" Veronica dropped a folder onto the desk with a loud thud. Leonard frowned and opened it. Inside were photos, evidence of their affair, texts, and even a voice recording transcript. Leonard's blood ran cold. "What is this?" "Insurance," Veronica said smoothly, crossing her arms. "You've been treating me like garbage, Leonard. I gave you a son, and instead of being grateful, you've locked me in that house like a prisoner." "Well, I'm done." Leonard stood up, his face twisting with anger. "Are you threatening me?" Veronica smirked. "I wouldn't call it a threat. I'd call it leverage. You see, if you don't start treating me with respect, I'll expose everything. The affair, the frauds in your business, everything. Imagine the headlines. Billionaire Leonard's empire built on lies and betrayal." Leonard's jaw clenched. "You're bluffing." "Try me," Veronica shot back, her voice venomous. "I've been smarter than you this whole time, Leonard. I know where all your skeletons are buried." Leonard's hands trembled as he slammed the folder shut. "Why are you doing this?" Veronica stepped closer, her voice icy. "Because I'm tired of being your pawn. You promised me a life of luxury and love, but all you've given me is coldness and chains. Well, I'm taking what I deserve, your money, your power, and if you don't comply, I'll destroy you." Leonard glared at her, his voice a low growl. "You think you can outplay me, Veronica? You're nothing without me." Veronica smirked. "Keep telling yourself that. I'll give you 48 hours to think about my terms. If you don't cooperate, I'll send these to every news outlet in the country." With that, Veronica turned on her heel and walked out, leaving Leonard standing alone, his mind racing. The next morning, Leonard received a call from his lawyer. "Leonard, we have a problem," the lawyer said urgently. "What problem?" Leonard barked, already irritated. "There are reports circulating about questionable transactions in your accounts. The authorities are looking into them. And the media is starting to pick up on rumors of your affair." Leonard froze. "What?" The lawyer sighed. "Someone leaked documents and recordings to the press. It's a mess. You're going to need damage control, fast." Leonard hung up and slammed his fist onto the desk. "Veronica," he growled. Within hours, his empire began to crumble. News outlets splashed the headlines. Billionaire Leonard caught in financial scandal. Affair and fraud, the dark secrets behind Leonard's fortune. His investors panicked, pulling out of projects and freezing their funds. Clients refused to work with him, and employees quit, unwilling to be associated with the scandal. Leonard stormed into the mansion, his face red with fury. He found Veronica sitting in the living room, casually sipping a cup of tea. "You ruined me," Leonard roared, pointing an accusatory finger at her. Veronica looked up calmly. "Ruined you? No, Leonard. I just exposed you." Leonard grabbed the teacup and hurled it across the room, shattering it against the wall. "You'll pay for this, Veronica. Do you hear me? I'll make you regret this." Veronica stood up slowly, unfazed. "I already regret everything. Regret trusting you. Regret believing your lies. But guess what, Leonard? You can't touch me anymore. You're finished." Leonard's chest heaved as he pointed toward the baby monitor on the table. "I'll fight for my son. You can't take him away from me." Veronica's expression darkened, a sly smile creeping onto her face. "About that, there's something you need to know." "What are you talking about?" Leonard demanded. Veronica folded her arms, staring him dead in the eye. "You're not his father." Leonard staggered back, as if he had been punched. "What?" "You heard me," Veronica said coldly. "I lied to you. The baby isn't yours. He's from my previous relationship. I just let you believe it because it suited my plan." Leonard's face drained of all color. "You're lying," he whispered. "I'm not," Veronica replied smugly. "And if you don't believe me, take a DNA test." Leonard's hands shook as he sank onto the couch. His entire world was unraveling faster than he could comprehend. You used me?" "Yes," Veronica said, stepping closer to him. "Just like you used me. Now we're even." Leonard looked up at her, his eyes filled with desperation. "You can't do this. I gave you everything." Veronica laughed bitterly. "You gave me nothing but misery, Leonard. Now you're reaping what you sowed." A week later, the DNA test results came in. Leonard sat in his office, the envelope shaking in his hands. He ripped it open, scanning the words through blurry eyes. Probability of paternity, 0%. Leonard let the paper fall to the floor. "It's not true," he muttered to himself. "It can't be true." But it was. The boy he had pinned his hopes on, the heir to his fortune, was not his son. Desperate, Leonard rushed to find Veronica, only to discover she had vanished. She had taken the baby, packed her things, and disappeared without a trace. The house echoed with silence as Leonard collapsed onto the stairs, his head in his hands. "Veronica!" he shouted, his voice cracking. But no one answered. Days turned into weeks, and Leonard's life continued to spiral. His mansion, once filled with life, was now dark and empty. His business empire crumbled entirely. Clients sued for damages, the authorities froze his assets, and his former allies turned their backs on him. The media had a field day. Leonard's empire reduced to ashes. Fraud, affairs, and lies. Former billionaire declared bankrupt. One evening, Leonard sat in the living room surrounded by empty whiskey bottles and unpaid bills. The mansion was cold, the utilities having been shut off. He stared blankly at the fireplace, his face gaunt and unshaven. The doorbell rang, breaking the silence. Leonard stumbled to answer it, only to find his lawyer standing there with a grim expression. "What now?" Leonard croaked, his voice hoarse. The lawyer sighed. "It's over, Leonard. The authorities have seized everything. The house, the cars, the accounts, everything. You'll need to vacate the property by the end of the week." Leonard stared at him in disbelief. "This can't be happening." "It is," the lawyer replied quietly. "I'm sorry." Leonard closed the door and slid to the floor, his back against it. For the first time in his life, he realized what true loneliness felt like. He had destroyed everything, his marriage, his family, his empire, and now he had nothing left. Across town, in her modest home, Vanessa sat at the dining table with her daughters. The room was warm and filled with laughter as the girls shared stories about their day. "Mommy, look," Emma said, holding up a drawing. "I drew us as superheroes." Vanessa smiled, ruffling her daughter's hair. "You're right. We are superheroes." The phone buzzed on the counter, and Vanessa glanced at the screen. It was news about Leonard's bankruptcy and downfall. She looked at it for a moment, then set it aside without opening it. "Mommy, are you okay?" Lily asked. Vanessa smiled at her girls, her heart full. "I'm better than okay. I have everything I need right here." Leonard sat alone in a run-down apartment, surrounded by darkness and silence. The mighty empire he had built was gone, and the son he had sacrificed everything for had never been his. His phone buzzed with a notification, a news headline that read, "Vanessa Leonard, from betrayal to success, the woman who rose from the ashes." Leonard stared at the screen, tears welling in his eyes. He had lost everything, and the one person he had underestimated, Vanessa, had moved on and found peace. Karma had struck with full force. Leonard was left with nothing but regret, while Vanessa, the woman he had cast aside, was thriving, happy and free. The once grand Leonard sat alone in a dimly lit, run-down apartment. The peeling paint on the walls, the creaking floors, and the sound of leaky faucets were stark reminders of how far he had fallen. Outside his cracked window, the city moved on without him, bustling, thriving, while he sat in the shadows, invisible to the world he once ruled. The man who had once commanded rooms and headlines now spent his days staring at empty walls, haunted by echoes of his past. His empire was gone, his name dragged through the mud, and his so-called friends had abandoned him without hesitation. He sat at a rickety table, his back hunched, as he flipped through an old photo album, one of the few belongings he had managed to keep. The images were faded, but the smiles on Vanessa's face and his daughter's young faces were still vivid. Leonard traced his finger over Vanessa's picture. She looked so happy, so full of life. The memory of her laughter filled his ears, and for the first time in years, his eyes welled up with tears. "What have I done?" he whispered to himself, his voice trembling. As if mocking him, his phone buzzed on the table. It wasn't friends or colleagues anymore, just notifications of overdue bills and debt collectors. He grabbed the phone, scrolling through a news article that made his heart sink. Vanessa Leonard, from betrayal to empowerment, a beacon for women everywhere. Leonard stared at the headline, his hands shaking. He clicked on the article, and there she was, Vanessa, standing tall and confident, smiling for the cameras. Her success story had captured the world's attention. Vanessa sat in her bright, airy office, overlooking the city skyline. The room was modern and filled with life, plush furniture, plants in every corner, and a wall of photos featuring strong, smiling women. It was a testament to how far she had come. A meeting had just ended, and her assistant knocked softly on the door. "Vanessa, the next group of women for the empowerment seminar is ready." Vanessa smiled warmly. "Thank you, Maria. I'll be right there." She grabbed her notepad and paused for a moment, looking at the plaque on her desk. Empowering women. Strength in every story. It had taken years of hard work, but Vanessa had built something meaningful, a foundation for single mothers and women who had been betrayed, just like her. Her business had flourished, and her foundation had changed countless lives. As she walked into the seminar room, a group of women stood waiting, all eyes on her. Some were timid, others curious, but all of them carried pain in their eyes, the same pain Vanessa had once known. "Good afternoon, everyone," Vanessa began, her voice steady and kind. "I'm so glad you're here today. I want you to know that whatever brought you here, whatever pain, betrayal, or hardship you faced, you are not alone. I was once where you are now, but I'm proof that there is life beyond the hurt. There's strength in your story, and you can rise above it." The women applauded softly, some smiling for the first time in months. Vanessa glanced to the side and saw her eldest daughter, Emma, standing proudly by the door. Emma had grown into a confident, graceful young woman who had joined her mother's foundation as a volunteer. After the session, Emma walked up to her. "Mom, that was amazing. You're changing lives." Vanessa hugged her tightly. "Thank you, sweetheart. And I couldn't do this without you." Emma grinned. "Well, you taught me everything I know. You're my hero." Vanessa's heart swelled with pride. Her daughters had grown into resilient, kind young women. They had walked through fire, but they had emerged stronger. Leonard's life had become a cycle of regret. One day, driven by desperation, he took the bus across town to visit Vanessa's foundation. He had heard about her success, seen her in interviews, and it gnawed at him. He wanted to see her again, to apologize, to beg for another chance. When Leonard arrived at the large, glass-fronted building, he hesitated. Through the windows, he could see Vanessa speaking with a group of women, her face radiant with purpose. Leonard's heart clenched as he watched her laugh with ease, surrounded by people who admired her. He pushed open the door, his worn shoes squeaking against the shiny floors. A receptionist at the front desk looked up with a polite smile. "Good afternoon, sir. How can I help you?" Leonard cleared his throat, his voice hoarse. I'm here to see Vanessa Leonard." The receptionist frowned. "Do you have an appointment?" Leonard hesitated. "No, but she'll want to see me. I'm Leonard." Recognition flashed in her eyes, followed by something colder. "Please wait here." Minutes later, Vanessa emerged from her office. She wore a fitted navy suit and carried herself with grace and authority. When she saw Leonard standing awkwardly in the lobby, her expression hardened. "Vanessa," Leonard said softly, his voice a whisper of what it once was. Vanessa stopped a few feet away from him, crossing her arms. "What are you doing here, Leonard?" Leonard looked around, embarrassed by the attention they were drawing. I wanted to see you. To talk to you and the girls." Vanessa raised an eyebrow. "After all this time? Why now?" Leonard swallowed hard, trying to find the words. "I made mistakes, Vanessa. I know that now. I lost everything. My wealth, my business, my reputation. But losing you and the girls, that's what hurts the most." Vanessa's expression didn't soften. "You didn't lose us, Leonard. You threw us away." "I didn't know what I had," Leonard admitted, his voice breaking. "I let my pride, my greed ruin everything. But I'm different now, Vanessa. I've had time to think, to reflect. I want to make things right. Please, let me see the girls." Vanessa's face remained calm, but there was steel in her voice. "The girls don't want to see you, Leonard. They've moved on, we've moved on. You're not a part of our lives anymore." Leonard's shoulders slumped. "Vanessa, please. I'm their father." "You stopped being their father the day you chose betrayal over your family," she said sharply. "You don't get to waltz back into our lives and pretend like everything is fine. We built ourselves back up without you. I'm proud of the life I've created, and I won't let you tarnish it. Leonard's eyes filled with tears. I just want a chance to be better. To fix what I broke. Vanessa shook her head. Some things can't be fixed, Leonard. Actions have consequences, and you're living yours. My daughters are happy. They're strong, confident, and loved. And they don't need you. Leonard wiped his face with his sleeve, his voice cracking. Don't you even feel sorry for me? Vanessa looked him in the eye, her gaze unwavering. I don't. You made your choices, Leonard. And now you have to live with them. I feel sorry for the man you could have been, for the family you could have had. But I don't feel sorry for you. Leonard opened his mouth to respond, but the words wouldn't come. He looked around the foundation one last time, realizing how far Vanessa had come without him. She had thrived, and he had withered. Goodbye, Leonard, Vanessa said firmly, turning her back to him. Leonard watched as she walked away, her head held high, her footsteps strong and confident. He felt like a ghost, left behind in a world that no longer had a place for him. Weeks turned into months, and Leonard became a shadow of his former self. He often wandered to the neighborhood where Vanessa's foundation was located, just to watch from a distance. He saw Vanessa leading events, shaking hands with powerful people, and standing beside her daughters, who had grown into remarkable young women. One day, as he sat on a bench across the street, he saw them step out of the building together, Vanessa and the girls. Emma laughed at something her mother said, and Lily wrapped her arm around her mother's waist. They looked so happy, so complete. Leonard's heart ached as he watched them climb into a car and drive away. He had no place in their lives anymore. He was an outsider, watching, longing, but never belonging. In his small apartment, Leonard sat in silence. The photo album lay open on the table, showing faded pictures of the family he had once taken for granted. He ran a hand through his thinning hair and sighed deeply. Karma had delivered its justice in full. He had destroyed his family, and in return, the universe had stripped him of everything he once valued: his wealth, his reputation, and his family's love. Meanwhile, across town, Vanessa sat with her daughters in the warm glow of their home. The walls were adorned with family photos, new ones filled with memories they had made without Leonard. "Mom, look at this," Emma said, showing her a flyer for their next empowerment event. "You're on the front page." Vanessa smiled, pride filling her heart. "We've come a long way, haven't we?" Lily hugged her tightly. "And we did it together." Vanessa looked out the window at the sunset, her heart at peace. Leonard's absence was no longer a source of pain. It was a reminder of her strength, her resilience, and the life she had built on her own terms. Leonard stood on the sidewalk outside Vanessa's house one last time, his hands in his pockets. He watched the lights glowing from within, hearing faint laughter through the window. "Goodbye," he whispered, his voice cracking. He turned and walked away, the shadows swallowing him whole. Inside, Vanessa and her daughters sat together, their laughter ringing through the air, a family whole and complete without him. In the end, Leonard was left to carry the weight of his mistakes alone, while Vanessa and her daughters thrived, embodying the strength and resilience he had never believed possible. Karma had come full circle. I'm glad you made it to the end. I hope you enjoyed the story. Please go ahead and generously hit that like button and subscribe for more captivating tales like this. We'd love to hear from you. What lessons have you learned from this story? Share your thoughts in the comments below. See you in the next story.